So I'm Lauriane, and I'm 26 years old, and I was living in France, in Rennes, so I don't know if you know. It's the capital of the region called Brittany, which is like near Great Britain. So I've been living there for like 20 years old, and then I studied in Lyon, so maybe some of you know. It's a big city of France too. And then I came to Japan, and it's been like 4 years I'm living here, so my Japanese is not that good, and my English is not fluent, but like, I hope you can understand me. I've got a very bad like French accent, but maybe it's good for you because then you can learn about this accent too. So, I hope my presentation will interest you. If anybody has any question about me, you can ask. Okay. Maybe later. So let's start? Okay. So, well, this image is kind of a cliche of France. You can see the Eiffel Tower and like a fashionable girl holding the French flag. This is not France. Well, this is part of France, but what I want to talk to you about today is like how like the image of like France in foreigners' mind, especially Japanese mind maybe, is quite different from the real France. So I hope today we can learn a lot about like that. So I don't know what comes to your mind when we talk about France. These are like a list of like cliches that people think about when they think about France, maybe. So of course, like first thing is like when I say in Japan that I'm from France, everybody will say, ah, Paris? I'm like, no, not from Paris. Oh, like where? Rennes. So like nobody knows maybe. So like of course Paris is the most famous city, and like it's like the image of France, and of course the Eiffel Tower. So you can see also the Eiffel Tower on the picture here. And another thing about France maybe is food that you know. So wine, bread, cheese, and also the French cuisine, which is like the very high class cuisine in France. And another thing, especially when I came to like Japan 4 years ago, was like, where are you from? France. Ah, Zidane. Like Zidane? Yeah, Zidane is French, and like soccer was really popular. Well, it's still really popular, but French team was popular at that time. Not that much now, so. But I've heard a lot also about like Tour de France, which is like the cycling tour in France, so maybe you know about that. This is pretty much what I hear about France. Or fashion also is popular. Or like Vuitton bag, you know, like the French brand. This is famous too. And well, what I can hear about like French people is like these four things. First thing, like fashionable. So, well, maybe that's what you think about French people, but actually, maybe people from Paris are fashionable. In the other part of France, it's not that fashionable, and people are just dressed normally, really. So, yeah, I'm not going to talk a lot about fashion today, but like, if you have questions, of course, I can answer. What I can say now is like, for example, in Japan, I can see many people with like Vuitton bag, and like, and everybody asks me like, oh, so in France, everybody has a Vuitton bag, and I'm like, no. No, maybe in Tokyo a lot of people have, but in Paris maybe you can find some, but in the other part of France you will find no Vuitton bag and no brands. We don't have that much interest in like brands actually.
Do you have a Vuitton bag?
I don't have. And actually I don't really like Vuitton.
Oh, okay.
People may have a Vuitton or a Cartier.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, well, the other image about like French people is like being romantic, especially French men are supposed to be romantic. Well, my friends are not really romantic. We still have like this thing, I'm gonna talk a bit about that later, called like galanterie, which is like men are supposed to be like nice to women and do a lot of things like, I don't know, like push the chair or this kind of thing. But like actually now it's not that much like that. French is not a romantic country anymore maybe. But the buildings and the landscapes are, I think, kind of romantic maybe. And this was the like good thing about French people. And the bad thing now would be like French are supposed to be like arrogant, very proud, and like always complaining, so and kind of rude sometimes. So well, I'm gonna talk about that like later, so I'm not gonna talk about that now. And the last thing is like French people are supposed to hate speaking English. So well, as you can see, everybody doesn't hate speaking English. We are not very good in English, that's very true. But like, especially people that went to other countries, we are interested in like, other countries and we can speak English a little. So yeah. So these are the like stereotypes about France, and I hope like after that I'm gonna explain a bit like how these images are not very true, or some of them are true, and why. So let's start the first part.
Yeah.
So my first part will be about like the French spirit and French customs. So this is maybe the most difficult to understand like part of my presentation, because it's going to be about like how French people are thinking and how maybe they are different from like other countries, and especially maybe Japanese people. So I hope you can understand better after that. So first, what is the French spirit? So for me, what I think is like French are very proud of their countries, but not of being French. And how can you say that? For example, if you ask French people if they like other French people, maybe they're going to be like, no, like I think French people are not very good. Or like, so we are not very like patriotic. We are not supporting like France for everything, not at all. But we are very proud of our history and like our culture. Actually, we think that France is like, I don't know, like pioneer in like culture, and our like history is very rich. So this is something French people are quite proud about, maybe. And another thing about French people, I think, like very French, is like we need to express our opinions and our individuality, which is a bit like quite different with the Japanese people actually, especially. And like we like to debate. So I'm going to talk about that later because it's very important. Like if you meet French people, maybe you're going to understand quickly that they like to like share their opinion and ask for your opinion and then debate. Like they don't like to agree with you. They want to like say something different. So we will talk a bit about that later. And like French people are very interested in politics actually. So they will quickly, like they meet you and 5 minutes later they will talk about politics with you. So maybe you're gonna be, I don't know you, I don't want to like have a debate about politics with you and I don't have any idea, but like French people are like that. And they like to protest and defend their rights. So this is gonna be also my next slide, so we will talk about that. And like I think all of that is actually related to French history. So how? Well, actually, maybe you know, during the 18th century in France, it was the period of the Enlightenment, which is like a great man, like this man over there. So his name is Voltaire. So I guess maybe a lot of you maybe know about him. He was famous for like defending freedom, and like they were opposing the king in France. And they wanted like the people in France to be able to make their own choice and not be the subject of like royalty. So this is a very important man for France and someone like everybody maybe is proud of. And the Enlightenment is a very like interesting century I think in France, and it leads like directly to the French Revolution, which is also something French people are like quite proud, because it's the first like political like revolution that ended like royalty in the world. So yeah, we fight it a lot. We fight it, like you see, like even when I talk about that, I say we, because like that's something we are proud of. So like we fight it. How I can say that? Like this is the Bastille. So like in France, the Day of France is like the 14th of July, because this is the day where the Bastille, which was a big prison, was like destroyed by the like people like leading the French Revolution. So this is very important in France, and this is maybe what can explain that French people are very like how do you say? They want to protect their freedom and to protect their rights, because they think that like they had to fight a long time for that. And well, something I think it's quite interesting is like when I talk about France, some Japanese people would say like, oh, Napoleon. And they're like, oh, Napoleon is a great man, right? In France, Napoleon doesn't have a good image actually, because like of course he extended the limits of France, but he was the one actually that like ended the French Revolution. and the like republic. So like he started an empire, and this is not something like French are proud of. So after Napoleon, we had a long fight for like democracy and like republic, and this is something that is always in like French mind. When we are going in the streets, for example, and I'm gonna talk about that later, we are still thinking about the fights that like people in France were fighting a long time before. So maybe that could explain why we want to like always like defend like our opinion, our point of view, and our rights. I think maybe.